welcome back to Cinematic Sarcastic, the podcast that talks all things movies and television. I'm Natalie, and I'm your host. On today's episode, we are going to talk about Barbarians, and I don't mean Barbarian, which is the new horror movie that came out this year. I mean Barbarians, the drama series on Netflix. It was originally released in October of 2020, and for a while there, I thought this show had been canceled, but the second season recently dropped, and I wanted to just talk about it for a minute. So Barbarians, as I said, is a drama series on Netflix, and this is a German television series. So once again, this is going to be something that you have to watch in subtitles, but there is a very, very good reason for actually committing to and watching the show with subtitles on. So Barbarians is probably one of my all-time favorite shows. I absolutely love shows like this that are true to form like this one. It kind of reminds me of the Mel Gibson film Apocalypto, if anyone has seen that one. So Barbarians is based on true events, but is a fiction series. So it's based on what was actually happening during that time, but all of the characters and that sort of thing are fictional. And basically this whole show covers the Romans going into what is now Germany and trying to take over the individual tribes that were there. The series takes place in 9 BC, I want to say, is the first season, and then the second season is a year later in 10 BC. And so they're separate Germanic tribes that the Romans encounter, and this series sort of covers how those Germanic tribes end up coming together and uniting under a single king in order to try and cast out the Romans. Now, what I super love about Barbarians is that all of the Germanic tribes speak German as their native tongue in the show. No one speaks English, and all of the Romans speak Latin. And I took like 3 years of Latin class and probably learned more about life than I did about Latin. Mr. Fraser, shout out to you if you are listening to this. I loved Latin class, but we read a lot of poetry and stuff. I can actually keep up better with the Latin in this show than I can with the German, even though my family is of German descent on one side. But, you know, most of the time I only ever heard my German grandmother speaking German to her twin sister, and we never really learned it officially. So I know very few sentences and can't really keep up with this show at all. So I definitely have to watch with subtitles. But this show is just, it's gritty. It's very much along the lines of something similar to, oh gosh, what is that other, it's another Mel Gibson movie that I'm, You Can Never Take Our Freedom, whatever that movie is called. That is the one I am thinking of. It's brutal in that sort of manner. There is nothing really Hollywood-esque about Barbarians. If someone dies in this series, let's say they take a mace to the face or a spear gets them, it is realistic in the same way. Braveheart, that's the movie that I'm thinking of, that I know some people were like, oh my gosh, the horse, and you can see like the gore of that. So it's realistic in that manner. If they're in the mud, they're in the mud. And a lot of these characters are really awesome. Now, the ending of season 2 did have the death of my favorite character in this television show. I'm not going to spoil it, but it does ruin it for me a little bit. I'm not going to lie. It is going to be tough for me to continue on and watch season 3 because there was just one standout character for me that I absolutely adored, and they are no longer in the series because they did die in season 2. But the show itself is amazing. I think the actors are all amazing. There isn't a single one that I can actually pinpoint and go, gosh, that guy sucks, and like pulls down the show. They're all incredibly talented. It is really awesome to watch and just kind of see how it all plays out. And you know me, I love like historical dramas and I love like period pieces that are set in times other than our own. And this one is 100% right up my alley. It's amazing. There are some characters. There's one character that plays in this series in season 1, and he's also in season 2, and his name is Sarcastic, and he is absolutely hateable. I absolutely cannot stand him. Like, he is the worst. And that just shows like how good of an actor that man is that he is just so despisable. But just as a character, that's his job, right? Like, you're not meant to like him, I don't think, in any way, shape, or form. But if you have not seen Barbarians, I would 1000% recommend, especially if you love, more historical drama shows. I would put this one kind of in the same category, like I said, as Braveheart. But if it's something newer, I would say it's right along the lines of like Vikings or The Last Kingdom, something like that. I would say this one is comparable to those, if not better than those, just because of the fact that it's very true to form, i.e., the language is correct for what they should have been speaking at that time. And I think that takes an amazing amount of effort on the showrunner's part to make sure that it is as authentic as they possibly can make it. And of course, it's a brutal story. There is nothing really romantic about the Romans going in and invading a country that they feel is a barbarian country. And so you don't really get a lot of that sort of quieter romantic feeling that like Braveheart had in bits, of his love story with the queen of that time and that sort of stuff. There's not a lot of that in Barbarians, I will say. There are some like, obviously relationships and things that happen in the show, but I would say nothing like ends well, if that makes sense, or it's not an easy life that any of these people in the show would have lived at the time. So would hardcore recommend. If you have seen Barbarians, please do leave me comments. I would love to hear what you guys thought. Those are my thoughts about Barbarians. Please like the podcast if you enjoy what I do here. Subscribe if you want to join the Movie Nerd family. You can find me on Instagram at Cinematic Sarcastic Podcast, and I hope to see you in the next episode.